All right, so yesterday afternoon around 5 o'clock, I was driving home from work and I was sitting at a light at Southern and Mill or Southern and Rural, somewhere in that area. They both look the same. They both have Kroger's on one side of them, a gas station, almost identical to one another from someone passing by. So I'm sitting about one car length back from the front of the line, and I look out and I wonder why traffic isn't moving. And I start to notice because the seconds go by, and usually the second the light turns green, everyone hits the gas like it's some sort of race, right? Everyone wants to get home as soon as possible or wherever you're going. But this time the traffic wasn't moving. And I believe the vehicle in front of me was a police pickup truck. And everyone raced to the middle of the intersection, and then everyone stopped and the longest minute passed as there was an elderly person with a cane slumped over who couldn't make it across the street within the time given to cross the street. So they didn't make it halfway. They were like maybe 30% of the way through the street. And traffic on both sides stopped. And we waited and we waited and we waited for this person to cross the street. It was like a surreal moment because in that instance, I realized that this is a great analogy for America. If you can't move fast enough, if you can't make enough money, if you can't meet a standard metric for crossing the street, you will be run over by a sadistic piece of crap executive. Why? Because running people over, laying people off, firing people, well, it's all part of the show. In fact, yesterday at McDonald's, I had to tell someone that the reason why paperwork wasn't done is because they had fired so many people that there was a backlog. And you're like, okay, well, did all those people deserve it? Maybe. Who knows? But it goes to show that if you can't cross the street in a certain amount of time, you are going to become roadkill. And the 99% right now is feeling like tire meat because the corporations don't care if you can't pay your bills. I believe today is day 37 of the corporate or the federal government shutdown. And from what I heard yesterday, they're not interested in opening things back up within this year. In fact, there's a couple of stories that said that they may not go back and even try until next year. That means a lot of evictions. That means a lot of people going hungry for Thanksgiving and Christmas. That means the pain and suffering of the poor is going to be wrenched up to levels that I don't think we've seen before. The cruelty in this current society is unbelievable. And I'm going to keep using the word diabolical in reference to Big Orange because there is no reason why things have to be this way. Absolutely none. People who can't walk fast enough have never been run over like this, at least in my lifetime. If you can't get out of the way, you've basically signed your own Merc certificate because society isn't going to stop to help you. There's no helping hand coming down to pick you up or to move you across the street. You're just going to be run over. You ever notice how every entry level job now requires 10 years of experience, a master's degree, and the ability to survive on vibes? Welcome to the American workplace, where the paycheck barely covers gas and career growth means you get to keep your job another month. We were told to dream big, but somehow the dream keeps outsourcing itself to another country. Meanwhile, corporate America's out here playing bumper cars with human lives and calling it motivation. Well, if that motivates you, there's one thing that strongly motivates people, the hate speech that I'm seeing against food stamp people, that you should get a job and not have to rely on food stamps. No one's pointing the finger at the real reason why people need food stamps, which is low wages, low hours, and jobs that are becoming incredibly more difficult to find. I personally know at least 10 people who have been looking for any job. Problem is, they're not hiring despite having giant signs outside that say, we're hiring, career opportunities, competitive pay. It's like walking through a Kroger's and listening to the ad to work in that store. And then you look up front and there's one cashier. And you think to yourself, is this for real? No one wants to work there because it's minimum wage. But simultaneously, no one wants to hire you. Because that's one thing that I've noticed about every employer. They want to get all of this for as little as humanly possible. They want to pay people who have multiple college degrees, experience, $16 an hour. And then when you're miserable at work, they come at you with, we gave you an opportunity. You should be grateful to be working here. And like I said yesterday, it's a hostage situation with partial benefits. You don't want to be there. You can't escape there. And regular motivation comes at the hand of your captors. They'll beat you with a stick while simultaneously telling you to chase the carrot. Talking point number 1. They told us to chase the American dream, but forgot to mention it's a subscription based now. You don't buy a home anymore. You rent survival by the week. And if you miss a payment, they repossess your dignity before your car. I don't understand why the word dignity has to appear so often when in reference to employment. I think Biden said in his last few months of being old and disgusting and just incapable of doing anything, right? Couldn't even walk straight. He said he wanted to return the dignity of work to the American people. There's no such thing, because dignity would mean having to pay people a living wage, having people actually thrive in the work space, which they are not doing. We all know that what's called wage stagnation is very real. When you can look in the mirror and realize you haven't gotten a raise in years, but you're doing 10 times more work. You're doing the work of 3 people, and they won't give you a raise because they don't have to. Don't like it? Guess what? They can find someone else who will like it even less, and they can pay them $1 less than what they're paying you. There is no dignity in the workforce. Last night I found out that my rent was so high that my payment plan wasn't going to cover it. Because despite having a natural disaster, I guess they decided to pass the pain onto the tenants, because they raised water, tripled in cost, and electricity went up. Everything went up over the course of a month. And the only thing I could figure is the broken water mains all over the place. Well, someone's got to pay for all that extra water. Guess what, tenants? You're up. And so I couldn't believe what the bill was. And I'm just like, what do people do when they get an electric bill that's $1,000? Because the electric companies are passing the pain on of infrastructure onto you, the person that still can't afford to buy food, but they expect you to pay. Either you pay or you get out. Or like a story that I was reading yesterday, a guy who took a job working at Google, but for months couldn't afford the rent in the area. So despite having what we would call a good job, he could not afford to live inside. He was living in his car for most of that time. Because again, between rent, food, utilities, you're done for. Stick a fork in you because you're done. I stick a fork in my rear every day at 5 o'clock. You're done, you head home, and it's time to power down. Talking point number two. Every corporate job posting says we're like family, but somehow it's the kind of family where dad takes your lunch money, mom calls it character building, and you still have to thank them for the opportunity. That's not culture. That's economic gaslighting with a smiley logo. Every time I think of a smiley logo, I think of Walmart and wearing that stupid work vest with the smiling face on the back, while inside the person wearing that vest is completely hollowed out. No soul, no dreams, no food, no opportunity, no future. The smiley face is almost a middle finger to every single worker that has to wear that uniform. Yesterday, while I was looking at a girl who was wearing that uniform, I was picking up some hummus, mango, and some cheese. And while we were getting ready to check out, I couldn't tell the girl was Hispanic, right? She was really pale, dark hair, kind of almost looked Asian. But a little lady walks up to her in between us, right? And she says, I need the money from my refund back on my debit card because I don't have any money. And the girl understood the little old lady because she was speaking in very broken Spanish, but I think wasn't really paying attention to her because she started going off and saying you'll need to go to customer service in order to get your money back. And then I looked straight at the girl and tell her to her face, he's like, I think that little old lady wants you to give her the money that she needs out of your drawer. And she's like, that's not going to happen. And then we both laughed. Not cynically, but in a way in which what the little old lady was asking for was unrealistic. I've always found it to be odd how quickly they can take the money out of your account, but you always have to wait 3 to 7 days to get a penny put back in your account once you've returned something or need a refund for something that didn't work. You always just sit there and wonder if it's actually going to come back. The reality is you'll never notice it because you've already spent it by the time you get it back. But economic gaslighting is the way that this country runs on. If someone were to offer you a job right now and they told you, well, with this job, you will never be able to start a family, you won't be able to feed yourself, and it's required that you live at home, what would you say if that's how the job interview started? You'd stand up, give them a middle finger, probably something else, and walk out. But that's the job interview you're going to. Those are all the job interviews that I've been to. In fact, one time after I started a job and I was becoming homeless because of the pay being so low, the manager looked at me and he said, this job isn't the kind of job for paying rent. And I thought to myself, aren't all jobs designed to be able to feed yourself, house yourself, pay for gas? And that's not true. That's the economic gaslighting that you've been uh, normalized to. Because these jobs don't pay for anything other than straight up slave labor. Talking point number three. They said hard work always pays off, but what they meant was it pays us off. The rest of us get burnt out, broken backs, and a team pizza party that costs less than the raise we were promised. And we still clap because clapping's free. That's it, people. It's just like the video I made yesterday. Gen Z doesn't want to work hard. Gen Z wants to show up and get a paycheck. Gen Z wants to start out as entitled and start at the highest level rather than starting at the bottom. And what they've come to realize is that the corporations aren't going to bend. They're just not going to hire you. They'd rather hire someone who's 50 years old to do the job of someone that's still in high school. Treat you like someone who's still in high school. The worst thing I've ever seen is a manager, early 20s, belittling his 50-year-old employee because they're not working hard enough. They're not working fast enough. And this happened to me when I was working at Walmart. I didn't care. I showed up for my minimum wage paycheck, $300 a week, and management didn't understand why there was no hustle. And that's where Gen Z's at. There's no hustle. They know this job doesn't mean anything, and at the end of the week, the chances of them keeping their job are extremely low because these corporations cycle through employees faster than uh, you go through your Depends diapers after eating Mexican food. Because it's only a matter of time before you have explosive diarrhea and you got to get a new pair. Got to start clean. And that's how corporate America feels about its workers. It puts them on, craps all over them, takes them off, puts on a new pair, and it keeps going with an endless supply of desperation baked right into the equation. But if you're not ready to be covered in goo, then you're not ready for the workplace. All right, let's get this over with. So, yeah, corporate America's favorite hobby isn't golf. It's running over the working class and then suing us for scratching the paint. They flatten our paychecks, call it market adjustment, hand out free coffee like caffeine's the benefit package. But here's the twist, we're still here. We keep getting up because when you've been hit this many times, survival is the rebellion. So you go ahead, keep your SUV of success. Just remember, one day the people you ran over might own the road. That's pretty stark for ChatGPT because there is going to have to be a reckoning. You can't have so much greed. You can't torment poor people by denying them food stamps, not paying them as federal workers, and don't understand that there's a reckoning coming. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know when that will happen, but eventually people are going to be tired of being run over on repeat mode. Every morning that you wake up, you open your eyes, and it's a day that you're going to get run over. And we know who loves doing the running over. He's big, he's thick, and he has an insatiable hunger for the rear end. He shows up after a night of heavy drinking and says, "You know what, MillennialSteam? You know what time it is." He reaches down, makes certain that he's ready. You say no, and he says, "More important than water." You try to cover your end, your weakness, by saying it's not worth it. And he says, "More important than food." And you say to yourself, "I can't do this anymore. I'm getting wrecked here. I can't keep making fries for the minimum wage. I can't keep showing up here and having the fries, the potato stuck in me. I can't keep ending up like these French fries. Bright and crispy potatoes at the beginning of the day, and by the end of the day, an overcooked, burnt French fry." And then you wake up and it's on repeat. The cruelty never stops. It's baked right into every single low paying job in America. And unfortunately, we can't just decide we're not going to take that job. We can't decide to get out of the way. It's coming. No pun intended. But with that said, I do have to prepare myself, especially that end, where after Fleece is done with me, the Soul Suck 3000 takes over for the rest of the 8 hours, sucking out every bit of my soul in order to turn it into profit. So I've got to go wash up, take a shower, brush my teeth, make myself look cute for Fleece because he hates it when you're dirty. So enjoy the day, people. Don't let the Soul Suck 3000 take every part of your soul. Try to hide a little bit of it so you have something left at the end of the day. So you don't have to go home an empty shell of yourself.